and I'm going to share some things that I've probably never actually shared before. Okay. Hey, I thought we would do something a little bit different today because I noticed that in all my videos recently, this theme of perfectionism keeps coming up. So I thought it'd be good to talk about it a little bit because I think it's something that we all can struggle with at certain points in our lives and in certain aspects. And you know what I'm like, I love talking things out and just really delving into what makes us tick, what makes me tick as well. The thing for me as well with perfectionism is I actually never thought that I was a perfectionist because there were certain areas of my life that it just didn't bother me. Say when it came to getting a task done in school, for example, there were some instances where I would do things and definitely had a sense of I could do more, but it doesn't matter, at least it's done. So I never thought that I struggled with perfectionism in any kind of way. But recently I've realized that that is so untrue because there are so many aspects in my life where I find it can really stop me in my tracks. And we're going to discuss some of those things with you today. And I'm going to share some things that I probably never actually shared before. One of the ways that my perfectionism shows up in my life, and especially at the moment as I'm getting older, is health. And I think it also kind of ties into a bit of health anxiety as well, and a little bit of orthorexia. I think because there's so much news and information out there at the moment about toxic chemicals and things are bad for us, and science is evolving and changing all the time. And so as we develop, we discover things that we didn't know before. So now we know that certain chemicals are bad for us and they can cause cancer, and certain foods are bad for us. And I'm really interested in health and wellness, but unfortunately, maybe when I hear something, I can't unhear it, and I take it really seriously. I think it's really hard to live in a perfectly healthy way in our society. So I'm kind of set up to fail. So then I end up just being really anxious about it. So for example, I have this pressure on myself that I want to cook from scratch everything. I want to eat complete whole foods. I don't want to have any bad things. I don't want to snack on chocolate and crisps and, you know, all the fun stuff basically. And I kind of set this bar for myself and I'm like, right, that's it. Because if I do any of those things, then that is it. Then it's curtains, which we obviously know. And I know deep down that that's not the truth. Everything is about balance. And just because you know, there's people that have smoked their whole lives and they're living and they're like in their 90s. And there's people that have never smoked and ended up getting ill anyway. There's only so much you can do and there's only so much you can have control over. And obviously it's great to take the knowledge that we have now and use it to benefit you. But I think it's really hard when you're someone like me that takes the information as gospel, and then when I can't live to that sort of impossible standard that I set for myself, I feel really bad about myself. I feel really anxious and I'm just trying to be too perfect, and it's just not possible. And if I did want to live in that way and I did only want to eat whole foods, that would mean that I'd be saying no to going out and eating with my friends, or saying no to social occasions, saying no to like going to weddings. So it's just not possible. Another way I think this shows up for me is being sort of, I guess, like a perfect friend or a perfect employee, or I kind of have I've set a standard for myself where I just can't be late to the point where I'm really early for everything. And I worry about this because I feel like people are going to get annoyed at me because I've turned up early somewhere. I think it's this sort of perfectionist trait that's so deep in me that if I'm feeling like I need to be somewhere at a certain time, when it gets close to that time, I start to feel anxious and worried that I'm late. So I end up getting ready really early and being really early. And it's because I want to be like this perfect, reliable person, like this really reliable friend who, you know, answers text messages straight away and says yes to everything and is really reliable, always on time, does exactly what she says she's going to do. And without knowing it, I put so much pressure on myself and pressure on these relationships to hold up my end of the bargain by being like this perfect person. And I also think people aren't necessarily drawn to perfect people. I think it feels a bit inhuman and it feels a bit unauthentic, and maybe it's hard to relate to. So then I think to counteract it, I'm like, well, I've got to be a bit more normal to make sure, I guess this kind of ties into, you know, trying to be liked and trying to be a bit of a people pleaser. But then I think, oh, I've got to be more relaxed and chilled and like maybe I should be a little bit late. And then I'm kind of like second guessing what the other person wants the whole time and manipulating my personality to fit into that so that I can be this perfect friend, which is just exhausting really to keep doing that. I just need to sort of let myself be and accept that some days you'll be able to answer someone back straight away, some days you won't, and that's just absolutely fine. And to come back to what I was saying before about health, I think this ties in with that, is just sort of wanting to have a perfect body and wanting to look perfect. And I was kind of getting into a really good habit of not looking so perfect all the time. I was wearing a lot less makeup and I wasn't doing my hair perfectly and I want to grow out my grey. But then I think from filming myself quite a lot, unfortunately, it's made me analyse my face quite a lot. And I see myself in lights that, unflattering lights, or like I see things that I don't like, and it really makes me feel like, I guess it comes down to like feeling unlovable like that. If I'm not perfect, if I don't look perfect, then I'm not lovable. Which, of course, I think that society has like ingrained in us as women that we have to be perfect, we have to look perfect, otherwise we're no good. And that's the thing with marketing, isn't it? Marketing knocks your confidence down, tells you about like, oh, women should be worrying about like lines and wrinkles, and then it sells you something. So it's really capitalizing off making you feel bad about yourself, and we've grown up with that through our whole lives. So it's no wonder really that I feel this way, and probably so many of us feel this way, that we just need to look as perfect as we can do. And I know I'm so far off being perfect, but think about it with other people. I think about my friends and how, as I get to know someone, I find them more and more beautiful because of their personality and because I love them for who they are, rather than the other way around. I think sometimes you can meet someone who is like the most gorgeous person you've ever thought you've ever seen. And then if they have a bit of a rubbish personality, then you can really, that's like ugliness. It's nothing really to do with looks. Like, I think beauty definitely comes from within and it shines outward. So by setting myself this standard of like having to look perfect, it's not how people work anyway. And so I'm trying to achieve this goal, which may or may not work. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter because you can't change people's opinion of you. I'm doing this in a bit of a funny order because I keep jumping back to things, but when we were talking about being a perfect person, I definitely feel like with my relationship, I kind of want to be this perfect partner. I want to be this perfect wife, and not in the sense of like having his slippers ready at the door or any kind of like 1950s thing. It's not like that at all. It's just in terms of like, well, if we're going to argue, we have to argue in the right way. I want to read books about relationships and know about relationships and know what our triggers are and whether we're too attached to each other, and really just trying to therapize my relationship from the inside in. From the inside out, from inside the relationship. I try and therapize my relationship, which I think is really hard to do because your perspective is so warped, and I think our reality is so different from someone else's reality. So trying to therapize a relationship when you're in the relationship, I think is a really tricky thing to do. And it's good to have self-awareness, of course, but just trying to have this perfect relationship and we're going to iron out all our problems, I think is very unrealistic, because you end up coming back to the same argument when you're stressed and tired and, you know, life gets in the way. You end up coming back to the same arguments anyway. I think relationships do get better over time, but I think that's hopefully a natural progression, and I think there's only so much I can do to make my relationship a good relationship, and try and have a perfect relationship is so much pressure and so much work. And it's okay to just be sometimes. It's okay to just be together and love each other. And I know they say sometimes that's not enough, but on some days it can just be enough, and it's just be happy with that. One of the big ways that it plays into my perfectionism, plays into my life, is this idea of having this perfect house where everything's clean and everything's tidy, because I really worry about what it would say about me if it wasn't clean and tidy. And I think the good thing about moving into this house, because when we moved into our old house, we did it up pretty quickly, and then it was just like, it felt like we'd finished it, you know, it felt like a complete project. And with this one, there's so much left to do, and there's so many gross parts of the house. You should have seen the bathroom up until last year. It was awful. There's a lot of lots of the parts of the kitchen, the sink's rotting through the worktop and stuff. So, and in the winter, this extension that was built gets really moldy. So there's lots of parts of it that I just have to let go of control and let go of this perfectionism, because it just cannot be perfect. No matter how much I scrubbed that kitchen, like, it could never ever be perfect. Unfortunately, it's 60, 70 years old, you know, that's just the way it is. It wasn't looked after. So I think it's been a really good learning curve for me, and it's really helping me to let go of perfectionism where I can. I hope this video has helped you in some way with your perfectionism, and maybe for you it shows up in other different parts of your life too, and it's not just necessarily that you have to have all your work done to perfection.